The Himalayas loom majestic and unchanging, an immense stone barrier dividing nations, cultures, and economies for millennia. Spanning 5 countries and crowned by Mount Everest, they aren't just tall, they're almost insurmountable. Climbers risk their lives. Few roads exist, even fewer trade routes. Yet hidden beneath snow and ice, a bold vision is emerging, a 540-kilometer railway tunneling through the Himalayas. Originating in China's remote borderlands, it plunges underground and emerges in Nepal. This isn't merely a train track. It's an audacious engineering gamble, a geopolitical statement, even a potential threat. If it succeeds, Nepal could shake free from its long-standing dependence on India and redraw South Asia's economic map. India has quietly bristled. Behind closed doors and in diplomatic corridors, tensions are mounting. So, the big questions. Why India's fierce opposition? What exactly does Nepal stand to gain? And how did such an audacious project begin? Let's dive into this story, where nature's toughest terrain meets human ambition and where mountains meet politics. Nepal, a country of breathtaking beauty, is nestled high in South Asia. It boasts ancient temples, deep valleys, and 8 of the world's 10 tallest peaks, including Everest. But behind that beauty lies a struggle. Nepal is landlocked, surrounded on 3 sides by India. To the north, the Himalayas block China. That geography isn't just inconvenient, it's a cage. Imagine living with only one door in your house, and your neighbor holds the key. For decades, almost everything, fuel, food, medicine, electricity, passed through Indian checkpoints. Nepal's economy was built on India's terms. In 2015, Nepal adopted a new constitution. India disapproved of some provisions, and what followed felt like punishment. Fuel truck stoppages, medicine shortages, school and hospital closures. Nepal was plunged into crisis. India never officially called it a blockade, but that's how many Nepalists saw it. It served as a wake-up call. Following that crisis, Nepal vowed never again to be so vulnerable, so reliant on a single neighbor. That's when they started looking north, to China. China, expanding its Belt and Road Initiative, saw Nepal as a key partner. In 2017, Nepal formally joined the Belt and Road Initiative, marking a real shift. It wasn't just symbolic, it signaled Nepal's desire to become more than just a landlocked country. It wanted to be a bridge between South and East Asia. China and Nepal began forging links, upgrading roads and airports, and most crucially, exploring a railway from Tibet to Kathmandu. Beyond trade, this railway symbolized sovereignty. Nepal would gain options, a real voice. But naturally, India wasn't pleased. Nepal's historic place in India's sphere of influence was quietly shrinking. Each new agreement nudged that shift further. For Nepal, though, the choice wasn't about siding. It was about survival, about balance. Enter the China-Nepal Railway. More than steel rails, it's a lifeline, a bid to escape geography's grip. Stretching roughly 540 kilometers, it starts at Shagatsi in Tibet, linked into China's vast rail network, then plunges through the Himalayas to Kathmandu. 444 kilometers of that lies in China, with about 90 kilometers carved through Nepal's challenging terrain. The aim? A new trade corridor. Today, nearly all of Nepal's goods pass through India. With this railway, Chinese goods, electronics, machinery, building materials, could flow directly into Kathmandu quickly, bypassing Indian customs checkpoints and fuel convoy delays. Crucially, Nepal could finally export tea, carpets, handicrafts, and even tourism services could head north. Connecting to the Qinghai-Tibet Railway would link Nepal to major Chinese cities and ports, its first direct gateway to world markets without relying on India. For China, it's a showcase of its Belt and Road ambition and engineering might. For Nepal, it's a statement. We are no longer trapped. We're forging a new gateway to our future. But what about the execution? Building a railway through the Himalayas isn't like laying track across a valley or desert. Here, you're building along the spine of the sky, the highest mountain range on Earth, with an average altitude of over 6,000 meters, which is nearly 20,000 feet. The railway begins in Shagatsi at over 4,000 meters and descends to around 1,400 meters near Kathmandu, a vertical drop of nearly 3,000 meters across terrain that's steep, unstable, and honestly, just unpredictable. To say it's a challenge would be an understatement. Picture building a railway that drops from the summit of Mount Fuji all the way down to sea level, but through constant landslides, earthquake zones, and vertical cliffs. That's the kind of challenge facing the China-Nepal Railway. Nearly 98% of the railway will consist of bridges and tunnels. And that's not a metaphor. It's a reality. Engineers estimate the project will require 45 tunnels, stretching over 272 kilometers. One of these tunnels alone will span 25 kilometers, potentially taking years to carve through solid mountain under brutal conditions. Then come the bridges, dozens of them. Some must span deep Himalayan gorges. Others must cross landslide-prone valleys and flash flood zones. And the region's seismic activity means every structure must be built to withstand earthquakes. Glaciers shift, rock layers move. Sunny mornings can turn into violent snowstorms by afternoon. It's one of the world's harshest construction zones. So, how does construction even begin? With cutting-edge tech. China is using AI-assisted surveys, satellite imaging, and high-altitude machines specially built for extreme environments. Many of the tools come from past megaprojects, like the Qinghai-Tibet Railway, where engineers first learned to handle thin air, permafrost, and oxygen scarcity. But even with advanced tech, this mountain doesn't yield easily. Every tunnel is a battle. Every bridge is a risk taken against nature's wrath. And yet, the work moves forward, because this project is about more than just transport. It's about national pride, strategy, and resilience. But it's not only nature standing in the way. Political uncertainty and financial pressure have cast long shadows too. After an exciting start in 2018, progress seemed to stall. Updates slowed. Rumors swirled. Was Nepal losing interest? Were the costs simply too steep? At an estimated $8 billion, the project is massive, especially for a country whose entire GDP is around $30 billion. Questions started piling up. Could Nepal really afford it? Was it walking into a debt trap? Critics pointed to other Chinese projects in Africa and Asia that left countries drowning in loans and stuck with unfinished infrastructure. Inside Nepal, the debate grew louder, not just over money, but also over sovereignty. Was this railway a path to independence or a new kind of dependence? Then, just as doubts peaked, came a twist. In 2021, China and Nepal reaffirmed their commitment. A new agreement revived the project, this time with clearer terms and a longer timeline, about 7.5 years from groundbreaking to finish. Some funding will come from low-interest Chinese loans, some from Nepal's government, and there's talk of involving foreign contractors to share risks and speed up construction. This isn't a small move, it's a national bet. For China, pressing ahead sent a strong message. We finish what we start. For Nepal, it was a defiant stance, against naysayers, against constraints, and perhaps against Indian dominance. This wasn't just an infrastructure deal. It was a public statement about Nepal's future, risky though it may be. So how does India feel about all this? For decades, India has held enormous sway over Nepal, thanks to geography and cultural ties. It managed Nepal's trade routes, energy supply, and often its political direction. When Nepal went against India's wishes, subtle retaliation followed: border delays, fuel shortages, economic pressure. But now, the China-Nepal Railway threatens to upend that. With a second trade route to the world, Nepal no longer needs to rely solely on Indian ports and customs. That means leverage. That means freedom. Naturally, India is concerned. Analysts in New Delhi warn that this isn't just economics. It's strategy. A permanent rail link between China and the subcontinent could bring Chinese goods, and possibly even military logistics, south. Even if the railway is meant for commerce, its existence shifts the strategic landscape. What India sees as encroachment, China sees as connection. This railway plugs Nepal into China's Belt and Road Initiative, a vast network of railways and ports linking Asia, Europe, and Africa. For China, it's a step toward becoming the global trade hub. For India, it's a wake-up call. India has tried to respond with its own infrastructure plans, the Kaladan project in Myanmar, the Chabahar port in Iran, but progress has been slow. Chinese projects tend to move faster, backed by state funding and clear goals. So this railway isn't just steel on gravel. It's a silent rivalry, played out in stone, steel, and sovereignty. And as construction advances, one question grows louder. Will the Himalayas become a peaceful passage or the front line of a new cold conflict? For centuries, these mountains were a fortress, dividing South Asia from East Asia. Now they're being pierced by tunnels and lined with rails. The Himalayas are turning from boundary to bridge. The China-Nepal Railway represents more than logistics. It marks a turning point. For Nepal, it means freedom, economic, strategic, and physical. If managed wisely, it could lift millions out of poverty and connect Nepal to Asia's booming economy. For China, it's a foothold in South Asia, and a message to the world no terrain is too tough. But for India, it's a challenge to its influence, a shift in a region it long saw as its backyard. So what happens next? That depends, not just on governments, but on the people. Will Nepal seize this moment to become a bridge between giants, or be caught in a new rivalry? Will India react with collaboration or confrontation? Will China's investments lead to shared progress or rising suspicion? The Himalayas are no longer just a symbol of isolation. They are now a proving ground for engineering, for diplomacy, and for the future. As these rails stretch forward, they don't just carry trains, they carry the weight of a region's destiny, and we'll be watching every step of the journey.